let's analyze this. So, it has been rumored that WWE superstar, former two-time world champion, former multiple-time intercontinental champion, and former tag team champion Dolph Ziggler, it has been rumored and speculated that he will leave the WWE at some point this year. You know, peeps, we've been going on and on and on about this every single year for the last, I would say, about 4 years. Pretty much every time Ziggler's contract is set to expire, we get to this rumor, we get to this talk about him possibly leaving the WWE and perhaps going to the Indies or possibly retiring and performing stand-up comedy full-time. Dolph Ziggler is a stand-up comedian now and has been for the last couple of years, and he seems to be doing well in that venture. Me personally, I have not seen any one of his stand-ups, but I hear that he's doing really well in that field. Now, the Dolph Ziggler leaving WWE rumors has been as persistent, if not as prominent, as Undertaker retirement talks. Every year we do this same old spiel over and over and over again, and we end up being completely wrong. But something feels different about this time now, especially with the opening of new wrestling promotion, All Elite Wrestling, founded and spearheaded by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks. So, WrestleTalk did a video pertaining to the rumors of Dolph Ziggler leaving the WWE, and let's see what they have to say.
Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk Mecha News! I am Luke Owen. We've got a packed show for you today with the rumours of Dolph Ziggler turning down a WWE offer, details of Mike and Maria Kanellis and The Revival asking for their releases, and an interesting tidbit about Andrade's current push and the advice he gave to one of his wrestling buddies. But first, as you will have heard no less than 1,000 times from this past Monday's Raw, the world of superheroes is about to be shattered as Glass is out in cinemas today. Ollie El Fagador and myself were lucky enough to be invited to an early screening of the movie this past week.
Let me just say real quick, Glass is pretty much a superhero version of the Expendables. Can we all agree on that? Because looking at that cast, or the main cast, it's just a bunch of old dudes. I'm just saying. I don't know if I have any interest in going to see Glass. But enough about that.
Wednesday, and you can hear our full review on the intro of the NXT Wrestle Ramble review podcast, a link for which can be found in the video description below. But in short, the whole film is shot like this. Fight scenes look like Sir Digby Chicken Caesar, and everything M. Night wanted to say about superhero movies he said in Unbreakable nearly 2 decades ago. But James McAvoy is very good in it. I give it a big Alan Partridge shrug. Perhaps Mortal Kombat 11 will get better reviews, which got its first gameplay reveal yesterday at a big event attended by AEW's Cody and Brandy Rhodes, as well as WWE wrestlers Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Zelina Vega. But while Cody and Chief Brandy Officer were happy...
If you don't know, by the way, Ronda Rousey will be voicing, Sonya Blade, right? Yeah, she'll be voicing Sonya Blade for MK11. Whenever that comes out. I don't know when that's going to come out. I kind of plan on getting it. I don't know if I'm going to get the game.
To go dressed sharply, Woods, Kofi, and Vega went in cosplay, with Xavier dressing as Shao Kahn, Kingston as Shang Tsung,
Your brother's soul is mine,
and Zelina posing as Jade. Also at the gameplay reveal for Mortal Kombat 11 was the confirmation that Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey is voicing Sonya Blade in the game. Here's a clip.
Hi, Sonya Blade calling in air support. Sonya Blade was the first like kick-ass girl that I saw come onto the scene, and I've always admired her and admittedly kind of emulated her in, you know, my own way, and now I get to try and be her.
Speaking on the live stream for the event, Ronda said, "I've been a lifelong Mortal Kombat fan, and Sonya Blade was the first kick-ass female video game character that I related to. Now I get to voice her in Mortal Kombat 11. It's a dream come true to be part of the Mortal Kombat franchise that I grew up playing." Rousey will next defend her Raw Women's Championship against Sasha Banks at the Royal Rumble in Phoenix.
Look out for that match. Right there. That match. It should definitely steal a show. If not steal a show, it should be one of the top 2 matches of the night. Along with Finn and Brock. I know Finn and Brock is going to be good. Now, I know Finn and Brock is going to be great. I have complete confidence in those two pulling off good shit. Brock works well and much better at this stage of his career with smaller guys, as opposed to guys his size or bigger than him.
Week from Sunday. But the day before that will be NXT TakeOver Phoenix, which features a stacked card including Tommaso Ciampa defending his NXT Championship against Aleister Black, Johnny Gargano vying for Ricochet's North American
match of the night right there. No doubt. Match of the night right there.
Championship, Bianca Belair looking to stay undefeated when she challenges for Shayna Baszler's NXT Women's Championship.
Oh, let me rewind that back a little bit. That is not the most flattering picture of Shayna Baszler right there. It's actually kind of haunting, very strange. It's almost like they kind of changed her facial structure. Or maybe that's just how she looks whenever she looks back. I don't know.
Baszler's NXT Women's Championship and the Undisputed Era defending their tag team championships against the War Raiders. And it was announced via WWE.com yesterday that the King of Bros will take on Cassius Ohno, following on from Ohno attacking Riddle a couple of weeks ago and cheating to beat Keith Lee on this week's show. And that NXT TakeOver card will likely help WWE score another record amount of 4-star plus matches in next year's Wrestling Observer newsletter. Dave Meltzer has revealed in his latest newsletter that the quality of wrestling in 2018 raised to new levels, with him awarding a record 252 matches 4 stars and above, with New Japan earning 118 of those, followed by WWE in second place, with PWG, ROH and CMLL filling out the top 5. Just missing out on the top 10 highest scoring wrestlers were AJ Styles, Ricochet, Marty Scurll, Kyle O'Reilly, Tetsuya Naito, Minoru Suzuki, and WWE's latest signee Kushida. But who was in the top 10? Let's count them down. In 10th place with 13 matches is the newest IWGP Heavyweight Champion and the owner of the best hair in wrestling, Hiroshi Tanahashi. In joint 7th place with 14 matches each, it's Matt and Nick Jackson and NXT UK's newest behemoth, Walter. Just missing out on the top 5 is the former British Heavyweight Champion Tomohiro Ishii with 15, who was bested at Wrestle Kingdom 13 by 5th place's Zack Sabre Jr. with 17 matches. In at number 4 is Kazuchika Okada with 20, never openweight champion and thrower of wonderful Rev Pro after parties Will Ospreay took 3rd place with 22, and in a surprising twist, 2 wrestlers actually came joint first, with both earning 25 matches over the 4-star rating. It's the Golden Lovers of Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Although he came 4th this year, Meltzer notes that barring injury, Okada is on track to earn himself the accolade of highest rated wrestler in history in the next couple of years. Currently on 101 matches behind Kawada's 129, Misawa's 139, and Kenta Kobashi's 142.
Like Godzilla versus King Kong.
Holy Killer Cross! Drops Cage and Cage is back up!
Look at Cross, deciding to live to fight another day.
Cross! Oh!
Impact fueled by what Killer Cross did to Taya Valkyrie.
I've got to start watching Impact again. I haven't been able to watch in years. Really, since they left Spike TV, I haven't been able to watch every week. I've been popping in and out of watching clips and small videos, things of that nature.
past Sunday. There's a human being underneath those chairs.
No, there's not. There's a psychotic, monstrous freak under those chairs. Oh my Jesus!
Oh my God!
Cross is up! What is this?
And Cross is helping! Johnny Impact fill the ring with steel chairs! Moose! And Moose just... Oh my God! My God! What's Moose's play in this whole story?
And that was your Impact Wrestling preview of the week, which will see the continuation of the war for the World Championship between Johnny Impact, Brian Cage and Killer Kross. Last week's Impact was also the first one to feature on their new home of the Pursuit channel, but with such a small reach, it's being reported that it's impossible to find out how many people actually watch the show. And as reported from Homecoming, the show was simultaneously broadcast on Impact Wrestling's Twitch channel, with Dave Meltzer noting in The Observer that the show brought in around 20,000 viewers on the Friday and another 19,000 on Saturday, which is up from their usual Twitch numbers. It was also good news for WWE's cruiserweight brand 205 Live, which cracked into the top 10 most watched things on the WWE network this week, something it doesn't often do, though it was beaten by repeats of Edge and Christian's show and TLC 2018. This was also the first week where it was moved back to its Tuesday night slot and aired live after SmackDown, which former cruiserweight champion Cedric Alexander seemed unaware of. As to why...
Now, the problem I have with 205 Live being moved back to Tuesdays after SmackDown is that I watched 205 Live this week, and the energy was just gone. I mean, gone from the fans. I mean, for God's sakes, they were chanting "This is boring" during the main event between the Cruiserweight champ Buddy Murphy and Humberto Carrillo, which that was a great match. And they were chanting "This is boring." Now, you can put part of that to being the short attention span of this generation of wrestling fans now, because they don't want to see, they have no interest in seeing psychology and slow pace, realistic style of wrestling. They just want to see high spots and fast-paced movement throughout the whole match from start to finish. Yet they're the same wrestling fans that complain about every wrestler on WWE's roster being some sort of high flyer. They bitch and complain about, oh, everybody flies too much. Everybody does the same suicide dive in every single match after match. But they're the same people that will chant "This is boring" during Buddy Murphy versus Humberto Carrillo. I mean, come on now. That's ridiculous, man. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you can't complain about that. If you're going to complain about that, then stop wanting it. Otherwise, sit down and enjoy the show, or just stop watching. For real. But my biggest problem is that 205 Live should not have been moved back to Tuesdays after SmackDown, because the fans are already drained from a 2-hour SmackDown. Now they have to sit through another hour to watch 205 Live. Whether the show is good or not, it's still tiring. 2 hours of wrestling is more than enough wrestling for one night, especially for a live crowd. They should not have to sit through more than 2 hours. Now, at home, that's a different story. But essentially, between SmackDown and 205 Live, if you're there live, you're basically watching Raw again. Because both are 3 hours. You have Raw 3 hours straight through, right? And then the next night you go to see SmackDown and you stay for 205 Live. It's basically like you've watched Raw twice, except with different rosters and different matches. But in terms of time slot, you've watched Raw twice, back-to-back nights. People aren't going to like that. People already don't like that. I'm one of them. But luckily, I don't go see the shows live that much.
The show was moved back to Tuesdays rather than being taped in advance of SmackDown in front of a hotter crowd. Mike Johnson, a PW insider, is reporting that it was a Vince McMahon call, as he wants there to be live.
Of course, it was a Vince McMahon call. What type of these decisions would be made without having Vince be the head of it, to be the one to call it? Every decision that we all hear about in terms of WWE and creative and their programming or their roster or their storylines or matchmaking, it's always through Vince. Why this shouldn't even be reported? This is not shocking. This isn't news. This is well, no shit. Of course. You thought this was Triple H's decision? I know Triple H runs 205 Live, but I highly doubt it was strictly his decision. If anything, he probably had to have like a 10-minute conversation with Vince about why that's not a good idea. But of course, Vince is the boss at the end of the day. So whatever final say he has, that's it.
With programming on the WWE Network. And after accidentally spoiling their own surprise that Humberto Carrillo will be debuting for the brand to challenge Buddy Murphy, he has been re-added to the Worlds Collide tournament over Royal Rumble access.
That Humberto Carrillo guy, he's got it. He's got it. I'm just saying, he's got it. All they need to do is come up with a solid character. I get the feeling that he doesn't speak good English. I've never heard him talk before. You know, I didn't see him when he was working elsewhere. I literally did not know about him until until I found out about the Buddy Murphy match. But the first match I saw him wrestle was Johnny Gargano in NXT this past week. So I don't know much about him. All I know is that he's Hector Garza's nephew. Hector Garza is one of the all-time greatest Mexican wrestlers in the history of Mexican wrestling. He was in the WWE back when they were the WWF for a little bit, for a little stint. He mainly worked in WCW. He also had a very legendary program back in the, I want to say mid to late 2000s in, I believe it was CMLL. It was either CMLL or AAA. One of you peeps can correct me on that one. He had a very, very highly regarded feud with Mystico, who became Sin Cara here in the WWE. I'm talking about the original Sin Cara. I'm not talking about the current one we have that used to be Hunico. I'm talking about the original Sin Cara that botched from his debut till all the way till he left the company. The one that teamed with Rey Mysterio for a little bit before Rey left in 2014. That's Sin Cara, the original one. Him and Hector Garza like tore it up down in Mexico back in the mid to late 2000s. I haven't seen the matches, but just I'm going by stories that I've heard. So
weekend. Johnson also adds that there is talk of adding 1 or 2 more names to the 205 Live brand, but there is no time frame on those debuts. Someone who won't be one of those 2 names, however, is Rush.
I meant to say that Hector Garza has sadly he passed away back in 2013 around the summer. So he's not with us anymore, and he was young too. I believe he was 44 or 45. He was relatively young. I forgot what happened with him, but you guys can look it up to see what happened to him. I think it might have been some sort of kidney problem or like some sort of tumor in his brain. It might have been that. I'm not sure. It's ironic because I was just reading up on him yesterday and I already forgot how he died, but rest in peace, Hector Garza,
who recently signed an exclusive 1-year deal with Ring of Honor. Rush was one of MLW's top prospects, looking to be pushed as one of their top stars in 2019, particularly at their April 4th show, which was built around his match with LA Park. Interestingly, Meltzer writes in the latest Observer that part of Rush's reason to sign with Ring of Honor was actually due to his friendship with the former Cien Almas Andrade. According to Meltzer, Andrade warned both Rush and his brother Dragon Lee from signing with WWE.
Now, let me get my take on this real quick. Andrade, I think I know what he's doing. I understand what he's doing and where he's coming from, and his sort of demeanor, kind of semi-frustration with his situation and the way he's been booked. I get it from an aspect of, before Andrade got called up, he knew the possibilities of him being pushed to the side. So I understand that. But if we're looking at it from Andrade, if we're looking at it from an Andrade doesn't know what's, like if he just recently got called up, he doesn't know what the main roster really is like, he hasn't paid attention. If we're looking at it from that aspect, Andrade is really not patient. He's not a patient guy, and I think that that's going to hold him back in the long run. He needs to understand that he just got here to the main roster. He just got here. So he needs to have a little bit more patience. I know, believe me, I know he's heard stories. I guarantee you, otherwise he wouldn't be doing this. He's heard stories about previous NXT call-ups who came up to the main roster and ended up going nowhere. I'm sure he's aware about the revival. I'm sure that he's aware of what happened in Bayley's initial run or initial few months. I'm sure he's aware of what happened with American Alpha. I'm sure he's aware of all of these things. But the man needs to be patient. He's really coming off as an entitled guy, honestly, because dude, you just got here. Why are you already bitching and complaining about not getting a push? You just got here. Patience, man. I understand if you had been up for a year and they haven't done shit with you, but dude, you've only been up here for a few months. And did they have you off on the right foot from the start? No, they did not. Even though you did have a pretty good match with Sin Cara, I believe at Hunico Sin Cara. I believe at was it the Extreme Rules pre-show? I believe it was the Extreme Rules pre-show. One of you peeps can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it was the Extreme Rules pre-show. That was a pretty good match. It wasn't that bad. And Andrade has to understand that there are a lot of other talented guys on the roster. Now, I'm not going to say that there are other guys on the roster that are better than him. I'm not going to say that, even though you could make the argument. But Andrade, you were just given a pretty good NXT championship run. You had arguably 3 of the best matches of your career against Johnny Gargano. You beat Drew McIntyre to get the title in what was a pretty good match, even though that was the match where McIntyre tore his bicep. But, I mean, come on, you're just getting started, man. Like I said, it would be one thing if we were a year into Andrade being up on the main roster. But we're not even, I don't even think we're 6 months in. We're not even 6 months in. So, he has to have patience and see what happens. Like I said, once again, I understand where he's coming from in terms of his early frustrations and not being patient, because he knows what the other NXT call-ups went through. He knows that when they came up, they ended up, being very, very extremely underwhelming in terms of character development, in terms of promos, in terms of storylines, and match booking. So I get it. But if we're looking at it from outside of that, Andrade needs to be a little bit more patient. He really does. And warning people about coming to the WWE or trying to get them to not sign, Andrade, that's not going to help you. It's going to get to a point where if this keeps happening, if you keep doing this, warning people, warning people away from the WWE, if this keeps happening and, guys in the back find out about this, your ass is going to be in trouble. Straight up. I've already gone on and stated in my previous videos that Vince McMahon can be really petty. He can be a really petty person. I mean, most businessmen are. Most business men / promoters / bosses and owners of companies, they are some of the most pettiest people in the world when shit doesn't go their way. Vince is an alpha. You know, he has a ruling class mentality. And, you know, he's not going to sit back and let you just do this with no repercussions, with no consequences. I'm telling you. I'm just saying. This isn't me. I'm not trying to come hard and down on Andrade. I'm not trying to give him a hard time. I'm just stating facts. These are the facts. For those of us who have watched Vince over the years and have seen his business practices and have seen the way he carries himself in this company, you know that the man can be petty. He can be really petty. And the smallest of things will tick him off. The littlest of things will tick the man off. We have to be aware of that. We need to be cognizant of that.
Noting that it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Meltzer theorizes that this might explain the recent push of Andrade on SmackDown, as this wrestling world is now a far more competitive landscape with...
See, what's crazy is that Andrade, he has the WWE in his clutches now. Now he's the puppet pulling the strings. Well, that's what it seems like it is. But if that's the case, I'm telling you, that's not going to last long.
AEW, Ring of Honor, and others signing talents to exclusive deals. And a talent like Andrade would have had a lot of options for when his contract expires. Someone who is jumping on the All Elite train is Jake Perry, the son of 90210 and Riverdale's Luke Perry, who is reportedly set to sign with the company in the next few days. Perry, who wrestles under the name Jungle Boy, is said to be inexperienced but with a great look and natural charisma, and is reportedly set to be a Cody project after the two work together at APW shows. On the other end of the experience scale is ECW original Tommy Dreamer, who appeared in Cody's corner for his NWA title match at All In, as well...
Tommy Dreamer needs to retire. I mean it. What is the value in Tommy Dreamer at this point? Like, what makes people still want to see him? Besides nostalgia. I don't want to, like, I'm tired of hearing, oh, nostalgia this, nostalgia that, nostalgia this, no. Other than that, because to me, if you want nostalgia, you can just go on the damn network. That's how I feel about it. Me personally, I want to, when in terms of nostalgia, to me, is seeing Daniel Bryan make his comeback last year. That was nostalgia for me, because I remember seeing him prior to his retirement. But the difference is that Bryan can still go, albeit he's not in his prime anymore, and with several injuries that he has had, it has forced him to change up his style. But mentally, his IQ has raised up to the highest of levels. Probably the highest that he's ever had in his entire career. That's nostalgia for me. Nostalgia is not, oh, I saw this guy wrestle when he was in his 20s and his 30s, and now he's almost 50 and he's still doing this. No. Nostalgia to me is not seeing someone who was previously one of, if not the best in the world, and now that I see him, he's fat, out of shape, a shell of his former self, way past his prime, could barely move in the ring. I have no interest in seeing that. None. So one of you peeps, please tell me in the comments down below, what is the value in still seeing Tommy Dreamer wrestle at this point? Not even wrestle, because that's not even what he's doing anymore. He's just having, how do I say it, glorified segments disguised as matches. Because I doubt he's actually doing any wrestling. I doubt he's doing intense ring work at this point in his career. He's just doing spots. I'm pretty sure he's doing just a bunch of spots now. At least every time I see him have a match, that's what it is. It's just a bunch of spots that make you go, oh, remember when he used to do that back in the day? Remember when he used to do that back in ECW? Remember how cool that was? how new that was, how fresh and exciting that was. Well, it's not exciting anymore because I know tons of other guys, younger guys, that could do what Dreamer does and more. So, once again, I ask, what is the value in still seeing Tommy Dreamer wrestle at this point besides nostalgia? He's fat and out of shape. Like, I'm calling it based on what I see here. And I have great vision. The man is, why is he still doing this? I'd rather see him on the Edge and Christian show than wrestle. He's more entertaining on that right now. I mean, he's a legend. And I respect him, but he needs to be done.
As the over-the-budget battle royal, and is someone who has recently expressed an interest in working for AEW on Busted Open Radio.
I have spoken with Matt and Cody about doing stuff for there, and I said, whenever you guys need me, I'm happy to help. They're two great human beings.
Wow.
They really are. Cody, I've known...
I'll give Dreamer credit. He's a team player. I'll give him that much. He really is a team player. You know, when it comes to a lot of wrestlers in the history of wrestling from you know, all the way back to the beginning up until now, usually with a lot of big names or legendary figures, you always hear about money this, money that. I'll go if the price is right. I'll sign if the price is right. Dreamer, you rarely hear about that. He is such a team player. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. That's one of the things that I guess gravitates people towards him, is that he's a team player. He is willing to do anything to help, like he said. That is the truth. Rarely do you hear when Dreamer signs with a company, rarely do you hear he got offered a buttload of money that he couldn't refuse. Rarely do you hear those stories. As a matter of fact, from my point of view, from my perspective, I have never had to hear that story of him being offered a shitload of money that he couldn't refuse in order to get him to sign. Usually it's Dreamer wasn't offered that much and he still signed because he wants to help. I'll give him credit. He wants to push the wrestling business forward. I will give him that. But he doesn't need to contribute in ring anymore. He can contribute behind the scenes. We need a lot more old school. To me, I feel like we need a lot more old school wrestling legends to contribute behind the scenes. We don't have enough of that. WWE seems like they're the only company that's actually doing that right and well. You know, you got Devon, you got Michael Hayes, you got Dean Malenko. I don't know if Billy Kidman is still there in the back. I hope he is. But you got those guys. Guys who actually know old school way. Guys who came up back in the day. You know, I don't know any other wrestling promotion that has the same amount of producers or that type of level of producers / coaches. Usually you hear it's just a bunch of young guys who are fans of wrestling, but they don't really know much. And they weren't in wrestling until now.
Since he was a little kid, his father was my hero. His father was my friend. I will do anything for those guys because I love them. And they want me there, I'm there. If there's not a spot for me, trust me, I get it. My own last show at House of Hardcore, you know who didn't wrestle? Me.
It was also reported recently that 4 WWE stars had asked for their release from the company, presumably so they could all jump ship to All Elite Wrestling. 2 of those names were Mike and Maria Kanellis, who both...
My thing about this whole AEW situation is that, how do we know this is going to be successful? They haven't even had their first show yet, and they won't have their first show until May. So how do we know this is definitively going to be a success and is going to cause a major shift in the wrestling business, and they're going to... This is all this ridiculous nonsense. Oh, they're going to compete against the WWE. They're going to give them a run for their money. If TNA couldn't do it, what makes you think AEW is going to do it? With what? Oh, they got Jericho, okay? They're trying to get Dreamer, okay? Or they got Dreamer, okay? So that doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter who you sign. What really matters, and like I said, 3D thinking. We have to start thinking with our heads as opposed to our hearts. Stop getting emotional. See what's real. This is what's real about the wrestling business. You cannot be a successful company, you cannot be a successful promotion without having financial stability. You can sign all the talent you can want. You can waste away all the money in the world that you want. But if you don't have any money to back up, to show for it, to be able to put on these shows, go to these big arenas, try to get a TV deal, try to get merchandise moving, all of these things, if you don't have this stuff in the back of your mind, you're not going to be a successful company. If you don't implement these strategies, you're not, well, I don't want to say you're not going to be a successful wrestling company. You will. But you will not compete with WWE unless you have even half the money that they have. I'm stating facts. You can look up this information here. You cannot, I'm going to say this again, you cannot compete with the WWE unless you have half the financial means that they have to be able to compete. If TNA couldn't do it, what makes you think that with All Elite Wrestling is going to be different? Don't give me the roster bullshit, because TNA in their early run, their early stages, even up until 2010, when they started competing head-to-head Monday nights with WWE, they had arguably the best roster on the planet in terms of wrestling. You could argue that there was about a 2-3 year stretch where TNA had the better roster than the WWE did. But that still didn't change the fact that TNA did not have enough of the financial means nor the rating support to be able to compete with the WWE. You have to have those two things. If you don't have those two things, you're no competition. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. You have no competition. Fans, we need to start becoming better thinkers when it comes to this. Seriously. Because I've seen a lot of people get super emotional, to the point where they don't even think with their brains anymore. When it comes to analyzing and critiquing something, especially something as massive as wrestling is, and putting your opinions, your arguments on social media, you cannot get emotional. Because if you get emotional, you will not be taken seriously. I promise you that. You will not be taken seriously. If you lead with your emotions, you will be a laughing stock. This is why most people outside of wrestling cannot take wrestling fans serious, because we are super emotional. And that has to stop. That has got to stop in order for us to regain or even gain any sort of respect outside of the wrestling community.
Recently moved to 205 Live, but have not been seen on TV in recent weeks. According to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, this is likely due to the fact that Mike asked for his release a few weeks ago but was turned down. Johnson adds that he has been told that although the former Mike Bennett does want to leave WWE, he actually has his eyes set on returning to Ring of Honor rather than going to AEW.
Maria has denied this, by the way. She put out a statement. She denied all of this. Well, she halfway denied this. She didn't really make her statements clear. She was still very enigmatic and mysterious about what's really going on in the back between her, Mike Bennett, and the company.
It's also interesting to note that PW Insider claimed that Maria Kanellis has not asked for her release, and she posted on Twitter in response to...
That's what I was talking about. But I'm pretty sure that if she didn't ask for her release, then I doubt that her husband did as well. I doubt that he asked for it if she didn't ask for hers. I'm quite sure they want to stay together.
Someone asking about the rumor, everyone thinks they know everything. Ha 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 ha. The other two names rumored to have asked for their release is The Revival.
These guys, they should go. they should definitely go. I would even go as far as to say that the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, they should go too. They should go too. Because WWE is literally doing nothing with those two teams. And it sucks because Gallows and Anderson, they had a lot of momentum. And when they came in, you know, when they essentially came in with AJ, not came in with AJ, but they came in after AJ did, but they came in, you know, being in the story, you know, involving themselves in the storyline with AJ. They came in and did that, and everything was all well and dandy, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the year, it was like, what is happening right now? They were able to win the Raw tag titles, I believe, at the Royal Rumble back in 2017. They lost them at WrestleMania to the Hardys in the, what was it, a triple threat? Or was it a fatal four-way tag team ladder match? It was a fatal four-way tag team ladder match, I believe. Because we had Enzo and Cass, the Good Brothers, the Bar, and the Hardys, yes. So, they lost them at that fatal four-way tag team ladder match at Mania, and ever since then they have been nowhere near competing for the tag titles. And whenever they do compete for the tag titles, we all know they're not going to win. And it's a shame because it's really a shame because Carl Anderson, he just got in shape. You know, his stomach looks like Finn Balor's stomach now. I mean, not to that degree, but still, like, he's in the best shape of his entire life now. And they're still doing nothing with them. And it's just ironic and strange how they're doing a lot with AJ and Finn, but nothing with them, with Gallows and Anderson. It's a travesty. They should leave. And the Revival, they've been a joke ever since they got called up, sadly. And we're talking about one of the best tag teams of the last 10 years, the Revival. They have been you could argue they've been one of the best tag teams of the last 10 years in this so-called PG era. And it's just a damn shame that nothing is being done with them. It's a crime. Vince doesn't like the gimmick apparently, which if you don't like the gimmick, then try to change it or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Fightful's initial report was that they had heard there was some fear among wrestlers backstage that Dash and Dawson wanted to leave. But Dave Meltzer has written in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter that after their win over Kalisto and Metal on Raw, while still in their gear, the Revival asked for their release. Meltzer adds that this has also been turned down, and the word he's been given is that nobody who asks for their release right now is expected to be given it for obvious reasons. PW Insider has also corroborated